Okay.
Welcome to another episode of Preparing for the Unexpected. I'm your host, Alex Fullick, and as always, we like to talk about things related to disaster recovery, business continuity, resilience, COVID, well-being, anything that can help you, your organization, or your community plan for, respond to, and overcome adverse situations. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, please feel free, reach out on LinkedIn. You can find me there. I am the only Alex Fullick on LinkedIn, so I'm really easy to find. Alternatively, you can find me at alexfullick.com. Longtime listeners, you'll know that I talked about presenting at the BCI World in November or December, I forgot now, 2021, and that my hope was to be able to get some of those speakers from that conference to come on the show and talk about something they wanted to talk about or present their session from the conference. Today, I'm lucky enough to have one of those presenters from the conference on the topic of supply chain, the silent lifeline for the success of risk management, business continuity, and crisis management. So I'd like to welcome to the show today, Kush Srivastava. Kush, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, I know we've exchanged emails and I've seen your bio and things like that. Can you take a minute or two and tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how you got into what you do?
Okay, fantastic. Interesting question. I'm going to be covering 30 years in 30 seconds. Okay, I have close to about total experience about 30 years, out of which 20 years with the banking and financial services. And while I was there, so incidentally, for the last 15 odd years, okay, I have been dedicated in the field of business context crisis, IT, disaster recovery, and resilience for organizations. So overall, about a decade and a half of core experience in this domain. I am a certified auditor from ICOR USA, and I am a MBCI from BCI UK. I am a business continuity expert from BCM Singapore. I hold certifications from IC Australia, ICOR USA. So, I think the only one remaining is South Africa, so I have to touch the African continent as well. Anyway, so that's on my district. That's on my thing. I have been lucky enough to be in my last assignment with Emirates National Oil. I have been successfully getting the entire group of 45 group companies certified for ISO 22301. So I can say with pride that I have dealt with the BCM life in close quarters. So that's about me in terms of the professional experience. I stay in Dubai with my wife and my daughter, and I have 2 dogs, 1 cat, and a few birds.
Quite the household there.
Yeah, I know. No, and especially during the COVID time, when you couldn't go out, so these were the biggest stress busters in the house itself.
Well, yes, having dogs, cats, and birds, yeah, that definitely
Absolutely.
stress relievers. You're focusing a lot there.
Absolutely. No, the aspect is continuity.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, welcome to the show. I'm glad you're here. And as I say, we're going to talk about supply chain. Now, one of the things you talked about in your presentation at BCI World, you talked about domains and common elements. First of all, could you talk to us about domains, what you meant by those and what they are?
Okay, I'm talking about the 4 domains which contribute to the resiliency of an organization. Primarily crisis management, risk management, business continuity, and supply chain management. Now, post-COVID, the dynamics have enlarged, and I could actually include the cyber threat also in these domains. And if I take the development of the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks, then I would include economic and political risk, especially due to the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict. So primarily, I'm going to be talking about business country crisis management, supply chain, and risk management. And when I talk about the common elements, okay, the common elements relate to the aspect of, you see, all these 4 domains, okay, they have elements of uncertainty, they have elements of disruption, okay, they are heavily regulated, okay. The important aspect is the aspect of reputation of an organization. If any of these 4 domains get impacted, the direct impact on the safety and the stakeholder interest, that comes into play, okay. And what is important is the aspect of the common element of confidence and awareness of the employees, if they have tested their plans, or if they know what they have to do, if they know what is critical for the company. And this will involve 2 major elements, which is a robust supply chain and the element of teamwork, where everybody contributes to the organization interest with optimization of resources. So that's the common element part of all these 4 domains. And the prime aspect is to protect the safe human and assets of the company. Now let me get on to the aspect of leveraging.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, how are these domains, 4 domains, leverage on each other based on the common element? Okay, now let's first consider the aspect of business continuity and risk management in these 2 domains. Okay, I have, you see, all these domains, all 4 domains require aspect from, if I want to add the for resilience to the company, okay, they have to be comprehensive, coordinated, planned, and collaborative. So that's the common element even among all the 4 elements.
But how do you suggest, I'm just curious, how do you suggest getting these 4 domains to talk to each other? I know many, we kind of understand that, yeah, we need to work together, but there are still so many organizations that have a crisis management team that works in silos, that, if something happens, then they come on board. But meanwhile, they haven't been involved with risk management or business continuity at any other time. So do you have
very interesting and a very important point.
Do you have any suggestions on how to bring some of these teams together?
Yes. It's a very important and a key question of the answer to do would mean success during a disruption or emergency or not. One of the prime reasons for all the facts that you mentioned, that there are different teams not talking to each other, is the 2 key aspects. One is aspect of the governance structure, okay, and the second is the related is the aspect of individual owners of these domains. That means if I don't have a common element in the governance structures which will bind a unified action during a crisis or an emergency, when it comes to handling risk or managing crisis or ensuring business continuity. So the key element here is that while I may have different plans, I may have different documentation, I may have different teams managing the different aspects and under different locations. The important and key aspect is, unless and until I have a congruence in terms of the governance framework, okay, I will still be facing surprise. the existing model of a siloed will only be successful if I have tested these individual plans and coordinated with these plans enough number of times to take care of all my surprises and all the gaps which may happen in between these plan owners and in these for these disciplines. So which is the really reason exactly why I say that when you are talking about business continuity risk management, what are we talking about? What is the common element? Okay, what is business continuity and risk management? This thing. What are they addressing? They give confidence. They give. They ensure a common service level agreement. I want to just quickly cover on the service level agreement, where normally with suppliers, vendors, and service providers, you have a service level which is generally driven on business as usual situation. I do not see in most of the organizations, they cover only the business as usual. They do not, I repeat, do not cover crisis SLAs. So that means the same provider, instead of providing 10 resources in a crisis, if he is expected to provide 2 resources, 3 resources in a crunch timeline, he is again get it by 10 resources in 4 hours, 5 hours. But in a crisis situation, I should be three resources within 1 hour of a intimation or required demand. So those are aspects which are common elements which can be which need to get addressed whether when you are taking care of risk and business continuity. Okay, the aspect of the disruption. Okay, how you see normally what happens is what constitutes a disruption. What is an event which will invoke or which will instigate or trigger the incident management plan or crisis management? Those are aspects which are commonly not even understood by the front level employees or front level staff. So across the organization, they should know what constitutes an issue and when is BCP or risk management or a crisis management trigger needs to be pulled in. Okay, so that's the common element. And you see, when I'm talking about the commonality between the leveraging between business BCM and risk management, the relevance importance of on both the sides of the teamwork, the aspect of communication, the aspect of stakeholder management, the aspect of protecting the human life, assets of the company, or reputation or market share. So these are common elements which need to get addressed when which need to be properly addressed. And once you have a common element of managing these business continuity and risk management with these aspects, you are adding to the resilience of the organization. Now let's get on to the one which relates to the supply chain and crisis management. Can I have just move to the next?
There we go.
Yeah. So on the, you see, just as I had spoken about business continuity and risk management, similarly, you have the aspect of crisis management and supply chain. The reason why we take this into account is the as I've explained, that you need to be considering the transaction life cycle or production life cycle or service life cycle in its totality and entirety. So you need to address the aspect of uncertainty during a crisis or uncertainty due to a supply chain disruption, or the robustness of supply chain management and the optimization of supply chain during a crisis, and the element of economies of scale during a crisis and while during a supply chain disruption. So you see, I will be taking us presenting a little later on the aspect of supply chain, and especially in the wake of the supply chain relevance in today's times because of the COVID, because of the 23rd, 24th May event in the Suez Canal. So we'll come to that, but that's the important aspect of why we should be leveraging on on these four key domains to be able to comprehensively coordinate, manage the resilient aspect of in a coordinated, planned, and a collaborative manner.
This might, excuse me, this might seem like a silly question, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I want to hear what you have to say. What happens if these groups don't want to work with each other? What happens in the end?
You see, I'll give you. You see, we've seen this aspect. It's an important key element of the success. You see, the important element here is the commonality and governance. If you are having a governance structure which is not in contributing to the resilience of the company, then what happens is that all these domains are, it's like all four people driving in different directions. Okay, for all the key people driving in different directions. Ultimately, you see, it is for the senior management, executive management to realize that if these are not in sync, okay, they should be able to realize the aspect of, you see, in risk management, you always do the treat, tolerate, transfer, terminate, and as it. So in this case, if you know that these are not getting, they are not in sync, the senior management should see that whether they will be able to still manage their operations with the current risk, or whether they are tolerating the risk, or whether they want to treat the situation. So it is an important aspect that where if these four domains are not getting governed with zinc, ultimately it will impact organization as a whole. Any small disruption, any small outage is going to expose the organization to its customers, to its stakeholders, to its regulators, to its other stakeholders, and that's not very good for the organization.
Right, because if you're not doing the same thing or working together, let's say three of these domains are working together: business continuity, supply chain, and risk management, but crisis management is completely out of touch, then what crisis management ends up doing is probably hampering and harming the work that the other three are trying to do, right?
You see, I'll tell you just, there is a chain effect, chain impact. You see, any incident, any event which happens, okay, the way the plans work is, the first comes into the play is the incident management plan, okay? Then comes the emergency response plan. If there is a human injury involved or human impact in due to the outage or emergency or the crisis. Then comes the crisis management plan, and then comes the business continuity plan. And along with these four plans, the ITDR plan has to come in, pitch in at the right time, because today technology is the biggest enabler. So that is the reason why it is important that all these, that's why I lay a great emphasis that the governance structure, or the way the framework of resiliency is organized in the company, will define whether it will succeed out from a crisis or whether it will go down. So it is important. When I say succeed from a crisis, that means they will be able to, they have all the relevant aspects of continuity, risk, crisis, supply chain are getting addressed by the respective teams and respective owners in when a crisis situation or emergency situation arises, and these actors play the right role. The problem is that sometimes when the three actors know what the script is and what their role is, and one of the actors, as you rightly mentioned, is unaware or is not cooperating or is new to the whole or is unaware, is not having knowledge of the interdependencies within the domains, that is when the problem arises.
Mhm. Yeah, that'll hamper what everybody else is trying to do, and you'll end up with a bigger crisis than what you had, or a separate crisis altogether, just trying to keep
Absolutely.
things going.
Yes, so we can now go to the other aspects of the where. Okay, so you see, uh, uh, when I analyze these congruences, the common elements, you see, I need to address so many these. I have listed down some 10 aspects which need to be considered in its totality. The IT outage, the adverse weather, outsourcing failure, outsourcer failure, sorry, insolvency in supply chain, cyber attack, lack of skilled staff, human illness. So you see, these are all the elements which will, you see, it's like the tripod. If one of the elements or one of the legs is having an issue, it will definitely impact the other two and the stability of the tripod. So it is important here in this case. Here we are talking about multi-pod airway because you see all these aspects have a chain impact on the other aspects within the company. Say, take for example, IT outage will have major outage because technology is there. Lack of skilled staff. If you do not have the right staff to do the processing, the human illness, we have seen a lot of it in the last 2 years because of COVID, and you see, cyber attack is you see the amount of investment and the amount of awareness which has come into the technology field by organizations. One has seen that there has been a multifold increase. You see, at the outset of the COVID impact, okay, the Infosys is one of the largest software service providers in India. You see, you can imagine that they had to literally prepone their 5-year requirement and 3-year requirement of laptops to literally the next 3 months or 4 months. Why? Because you see, there were no people working in the office, 100% people working from home. They had the challenge on the IT side, you had the aspect of security, networking, the confidentiality aspect of. So all those are aspects which were taken into account, which have become reality. The aspect of digitalization of operations has been another the key aspect, where in the digitization journey you can have everything running if everything is managed within your employees. But at the same point of time, when you are having a supply chain or when you are having a transaction life cycle, service management life cycle, where you have service providers, vendors, and so those will need to be they need to be incorporated into your systems, okay, IT systems, and including their part of training, including their part of the security and access and controls and everything. And coupled with this is the risk of the cyber threat. So those are all, you see, there is a very typical example in COVID of water hole technique being utilized by hackers. Now, water hole technique is like, you see, when or probably when Kush Srivastava or Alex are working from home on an official laptop, okay, all the controls are there, okay, official laptop. But when the same laptop is being used by my son, okay, then at some point of time, okay, then it gets into the that is cloned by the hacker, okay. Now, once Alex or Kush go to the office and log on to the official network, that is when the clone or the hacker will attack or will have access to the official network. So this is where I'm just getting a very important call. Can I just take? It's okay. It's okay. So that's the kind of a risk what we have running in. Now let's go on to the next aspect of
Well,
what are the impact of this.
Before we move on to the next one, we got to take a quick break. So today we're talking about supply chain, the silent lifeline for the success of risk management, business continuity, and crisis management. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. And we're talking today with Kush Srivastava, and we will be right back. Welcome back. Today we are talking with Kush Srivastava about supply chain, the silent lifeline for the success of risk management, business continuity, and crisis management. Kush, continue on where you are. You were telling us a great story here of the congruence. So if you would continue on.
Okay, great. So what I was mentioning about the impact of the various factors, okay, and how these factors are impacting the supply chain, risk management, business continuity, and the aspect of resiliency for the organization. You see, all those what we have been speaking about are factors which are impacting the procurement life cycle of the company. Are getting the train requires the trained and skilled manpower availability, constant availability. The aspect of communication and coordination, the aspect of planning, having a plan B for your supply chain management. Now, why I am mentioning all these aspects is because of the common elements what we have just discussed, and these are the other elements where these aspects or these factors will get impacted if you do not lay the basic foundation, if you do not have the basic clarity among the employees and their documentation and the framework and the governance level and the organization. Now, coupled with what they say is the aspect of the vendor management or the cyber and data security aspect, the confidentiality aspect. Today, as we speak in the post-COVID world, there have been various ways of continuing your business by leveraging partnerships and strategic alliances. So those are aspects which will need to be taken into account when we are talking about the resiliency of an organization and the importance of these 4 domains. Now let me just next, please. Now let me just cover the aspects of what are the common imperatives across these 4 domains. Okay, the documentation, the currency of plans. That means they should be current and not outdated. They should be reviewed. They should be updated. All that aspect. Then the aspect of training and awareness. I may have the best of the plans, but if my people don't know it, they will not be. It will not be an effective during a crisis or emergency. The aspect of early warning system is an important element. Why? Because early warning system is when people recognize the issue or the flood. You see, everybody knows that when the fire alarm is ringing, okay, they should evacuate the building. But if they see a spark or if they see something which has not triggered the alarm, should they be concerned? So those are key elements where you see. Similarly, especially in where the organization has multi-operation side, multi-location side, multi-nationalities working in the organization, you see the aspect. I have had instances where the early warning, in spite of being people having been trained and knowledge, they could not react at the right time because of the language issue, the vernacular language issue. So an Indian guy was telling somebody something in his own native language, and the Filipino was unable to understand what this person. Now, this Filipino is a manager. Now, the Filipino manager was unable to appreciate that. He understood that there is something this man is trying to tell me, but the same thing. So you see, those are aspects which will need to be taken into account. And the other important is the aspect of the top management commitment. Okay, when I say top management commitment, they should have, when you want to succeed in such a endeavor of they should it should be having the right support and right ethos from the senior management, with their support, with their allocation of budget, with their allocation of role and responsibilities, and ensuring that the right resources are managing the right positions. That means crisis manager, business continuity manager, supply chain specialist, or for that matter, risk manager. Everybody has to be the adequately trained and adequately experienced. Now, let us see what is the rolling impact of this on the supply chain management. Now, I was talking about the aspect of, you see, rolling impact is on account of, see, I've taken 4 key examples. Okay, I will not cover all of them in detail. You see, all these, I've taken the example of COVID-19 and its related impact. Okay, during COVID-19, what has happened? The cost of doing business has gone up. Need for quick management decision is the need of the hour. Okay, they need to relook at the finance and the costing model. There is regulatory compliance to be adhered to. There is the new operating model, or the new normal has defined so many other things. Now, let me take the aspect of the supply chain, so Suez Canal blockade. Okay, what did it do? You see, today, let me just to cover quickly. Okay, the Suez Canal is a 94 kilometer journey for a ship. It has a certain it has certain number of bends where it takes longer for a large type ships, which had got stuck, to clear to pass through the canal. There are certain portions of the canal where there is the canal is so narrow that 2 ships cannot pass side by side. The large, I'm talking about the right. You see, the other important aspect is that Suez Canal today, as we speak, handles 12% of the global trade. Okay, then you see time and cost impact because of non-availability of Suez Canal. It will, if I take if you have to go through the Cape of Good Hope, which is down south on the African continent, it will mean 12 additional days of journey. This will have legal impact, insurance impact. This will have major risk to the supply chain and production life cycles for the end customer. So that's your on the supply. That's why we have to consider all the business continuity, the risk aspect, and the crisis aspect on the supply chain. On the cyber security, you see, I have just mentioned, we were talking about the cyber security, about the complexities of hosting, complexities of cloud solution, the hidden terms and conditions of the providers, and the legal remedies available to a person who has suffered a loss. So those are all aspects which add to the cyber risk, and which will need to be addressed when you are considering all these 4 domains. Global economic outlook, it can't be much worse than what we are seeing as an impact of the Ukraine and other thing. You see, the oil price per barrel has moved up from literally from $65 to 140, 145 in the last 20 days. So those are all, that's the reality of the risk and how it should be taken into account when you're seeing the when you are seeing or addressing the supply chain in line with the other domains. So now let me just quickly cover the aspect of how supply chain can aid for better business continuity, crisis management plan, and the role in response and recovery. Okay, so I'm going to be covering mapping of supply chain, preferential status of customer, the declustering in the production cycle. Okay, that's the key elements which I'm going to be talking about. Okay, now let's talk about the aspect of mapping the supply chain. Next, please. Okay, mapping of supply chain is nothing but what I'm doing is that I represent the entire transaction life cycle as nodes and links, where my nodes represents the entities such as the supplier, distributor, customers, and my links represent the link represents the flows that include material, service, funds, and information. So one is the on the aspects of party, and on the other is the aspect of what constitutes a supply chain or a production life cycle. Now, when I am doing this kind of a modeling with the nodes and links, okay, I have a lot. I have the certain challenges. Okay, now what if the suppliers, if I have large number of suppliers and I have different supplier bases. So you see, when I'm drawing these supply chain maps, okay, the complexity of operations, complexity of product categories, and the production processes, they contribute to the challenges in my supply chain mapping. The solution to all this is that I have to make this supply chain mapping much simpler. Okay, demand chain, geographic location. So I do common elements of the supply chain where I am doing the supply and sites differentiation and ensuring that my bill of material, I have drawn the end-to-end requirement of production life cycle. So that's how I will make my production life cycle mapping more comprehensive, and I can see the gaps and risks and interdependencies better. Now, I am going to the next aspect. Okay. In the interest of time, I am not getting into the example of the supply chain mapping. Okay. Now let me take the aspect of how, as a preferred customer, you can have better supply chain management. Okay. When I am becoming, as a supplier or as a provider, okay, you become a supplier, you become a preferred customer. And when I say a preferred customer, that means there is a better relationship between the provider and the customer. So that means I will have a more transparent relationship with my counterparty. I will share the relevant information. I will treat the suppliers ethically. I'll pay them on time, and I will empathize on their while as a person or as if I'm stepping into their shoes. What this happens is, what this results in is a more robust relationship between the parties, which will aid to the aspect of resiliency. Now let us see the next one.
I've got a quick question for you.
Yeah.
Because I hear about it quite a bit, and I've experienced it. Do you have anything to say when organizations or partners are reluctant to share information? They want everything from you, but they don't want to give you any of their information. Do you have any comments on that?
Absolutely. You see, normally organizations or managements, they don't want to share the secret, or they don't want to share the information. One is because of the typical terms and conditions, okay, of which they are getting governed in the market by. The other important element is the element that, there is everybody thinks that if I give out certain information, okay, my competitor or my competition is going to use that information against me. Now it could be as a simple information that where do you source your raw materials from, which countries, which geographies. They don't want to share the information. Why? Because they are they fear that they have a normal natural fears of compromising on their relationship with their suppliers and providers. So that is the some of them are inherent, but where when your model is strong, when your operational practices are strong, when when your production life cycle, service management life cycle are robust, okay, then you don't worry about it, because then you would have taken care that if plan A with supplier A is not working, I can deploy strategy B. So, or I can have some strategy plan C. So those are aspects which as the organization grows, they can handle it in a more professional manner.
Okay.
Okay. So now let us talk about declustering. Okay. I'll just give you a declustering is all about when organizations tend to take advantage of a certain cost and logistics issue and government incentive schemes from a certain region or certain country, or where there is availability of cheap labor or abundance of labor, or there are advantages of tax tariff and all. So all the providers, they go for such a kind of a supply chain. Now this has been extremely tested in the Thailand floods of 2011. Okay, this is where when there were the Thailand floods had impacted, okay, the shortage of hard disk drives. Okay, the prices, I remember, had gone 3 times the normal price. People out of work, 600,000. Okay, factories shut, 9,800. Okay, 6,000 plus automobiles not produced. Okay, the sales of various large corporations were down. Why? Because there was lack of supply of the critical part. Okay, and this is where the impact was has to be understood by organizations, where they should ensure that they have different regions, they have different plants from different region and country, and reconsider the aspect of the distribution and receipt points of ports and airports and from different regions, and ask supplier to de-risk from a single plant or single source. So that's on your declustering of the supply chain management. And lastly, let me since I will just cover the last aspect of our flexible supply chain, I'll cover it in a minute, which is the supply chain should be adaptable and should be flexible and should be able to adapt quickly to the risk events and risk with the change in demand and disruption in supply chain. So those are all. How do you do this? Okay, it could be because of variability in the supply chain flexibility, the material flexibility, the scheduling flexibility, the capacity flexibility, energy flexibility. Okay, and lastly, workforce flexibility. When I say flexibility, that means I have a primary strategy, plan A for all aspects of supply chain capacity, energy, or workforce, and I have a plan B. So that means that's where you are coming at in terms of ensuring that your supply chain end to end has a built-in mechanism which will ensure the continuity and which will ensure resiliency for the organization.
How far do you go with that? Every single supplier or just your key suppliers? Because that could be a lot of work if it's every single person or organization that you deal with.
No, you see, it's a very simple, if you take it as if you take the 80-20 principle, okay? Normally what you see, what is happening is that from the aspect of what companies are doing is on the key aspect of key suppliers and the same, they are either getting into multiple arrangements on the key aspects, especially with on the supply chain risk aspect. And the second important aspect what organizations have been doing is that they, over a period of time, they have brought in the aspect of forward and backward integration within the company. So where forward and backward integration is, that means they will go into the aspect of acquiring or letting off the certain aspect of their operations so that their dependency gets reduced and they have a better control on the end-to-end process.
Okay. On that note, we've come to the end of our show. Kush, thank you so much for joining us today. Oh, and I did want to say, anyone who was listening that could hear Kush say next, please. We were actually looking at some slides as we were going through. So just to explain what Kush was saying there.
Okay.
Kush, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Alex. And I wish everybody best of luck in all their endeavors in life and stay safe. Bye-bye.
And on that note, we've come to the end of the show. Everybody watching and listening, stay prepared, everybody. If you like that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.